I agree that it's unprecedented to find the government using its newly found majority not obtained at the polls to speed up or force feed 9 bills through the House of Commons. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this.
Sorry for putting Rosemary Barton's mug on your screen first thing in this video, but the subject matter is too important to pass up on. So the Liberals used unprecedented trickeries in order to ram through the most insidious laws our country has ever seen. But what does that mean for us going forward? Also, I went deep behind enemy lines yesterday during a meeting, and what I uncovered should send chills down your spine, because I know it sure did for me. My name is Eli Daniel, and this is The Right Call. Like, share, subscribe, hype this video up. Any interaction on this channel helps push the truth out, and maybe someday help break that CBC-induced coma that so many Canadians are under. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button, because if you like the truth, you found the right place. Boy, is this getting really creepy.
The UAE has become the first Arab country to set a minimum age for social media use. Under the new rules approved on Thursday, children under 15 are banned from creating or using personal social media accounts. They are also prohibited from posting, commenting, sharing, or joining public groups. Teenagers aged 15 to 16, however, will be allowed to use social media but will be subject to enhanced safeguards. These include age-based content controls, parental supervision, and restrictions on interacting with unknown users. Social media platforms must also implement robust age verification measures using digital ID and AI. Self-declaration of age will not be accepted as a valid form of verification.
Over 14 countries, France, the UK, Australia, now the United Arab Emirates, have all introduced within a few months of each other a carbon copy of the social media ban for those under 16. And all of them will require ID verification in order to prove your age. It doesn't make sense that so many jurisdictions would emulate the same legislation, and that so quickly. This isn't organic. This isn't led by the electorate. This is not how sovereign countries operate. At this point, there is no coincidences whatsoever. It can only be explained by some form of coordinated effort, which begs the question, by who? The why, however, is simple. Traditional media is dying.
I wanted to ask what led to this recommendation about experts assessing CBC for fairness and balance, and I'm wondering whether you're concerned that it could be interpreted as you saying CBC is currently biased, or is that how it should be interpreted?
Spoiler alert, yes, CBC is definitely biased. And believe me, I'll talk more about it later in this report, but I got to see it firsthand, witness it behind closed doors.
It's well known that public trust in the media is declining, and I think this is one recommendation that could well, whether it could turn it around, it could stem that tide.
Gen Zs get their news from social media. Millennials, a mix of digital sources, namely social media and also some podcasts and other digital means. So traditional media is losing their grip on the minds of many generations. Anonymity also needs to be crushed online, and this is why they're bringing in digital ID verification in order to use social media. Once they verify your ID, forget your anonymous account, forget your meme accounts, forget being able to hold certain powers to account when it is now illegal to do so in your jurisdiction. The ideological capture must continue, and losing grip on the narrative cannot be allowed. This is painfully obvious. The internet was supposed to democratize access to information, but it's very quickly turning into a massive psyop.
Conservatives is this wall of conspiracy theory, frankly paranoia, that I know many other conservatives bristle at. But they have found themselves divided, and in my view, on the wrong side of a number of criminal justice matters in this session of the House.
But keep listening, because it gets worse.
I hope that the conspiracies and the tinfoil hats are something that will fade away over time. But we can now safely say that it's the Liberal Party that's the party that's most clearly for law and order in the country.
The Liberal Party is now clearly the party of law and order. See, this is my worry. Repeat a lie enough times and it becomes the truth. My question to you is, do you find that crime has dwindled over the last decade or increased? Because all statistics here show that crime rate is actually booming in Canada. But what an absolute shameful statement by Steven Mackinnon, who's the leader of the government in the House of Commons, regarding opposition and concerns with Bill C-22, the Lawful Access Access Act bill, the law effectively that creates backdoors in all your devices, that forces tech companies to store your data so that the government can access it without a warrant, and that on mere suspicions that you might, maybe, have committed a crime. Oh, by the way, it also gives the government the right to force tech companies to create backdoor entrances into your devices and to break encryption. That's right. Your messages and all of your data cannot be safe now anymore. The government will have access to it. Also, by the way, hackers could have access to it. If encryption is broken or has a vulnerability built into it, that means it's not safe anymore. But see, every organization with a long track record of expert commentary on the rule of law in Canada has condemned this bill. So his statements do not help to alleviate the very real fears that every single member of parliament of every party, except the Liberal Party, have raised concerns and voted against. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. Or the myriad of experts from just about every corner of the tech world coming out in force to denounce this bill. The Liberals are completely out of touch, and Creepy Gary is no different.
Committed to the safety and security of all Canadians. Any form of violence, intimidation, or transnational repression targeting individuals and communities in Canada is unacceptable and punishable under Canadian law. We're taking action to protect Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We're passing the most comprehensive criminal justice reforms in a generation. And just this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, after many, many days of obstruction, we passed Bill C-22, lawful access.
Boy, listening to this guy talks gives me a headache. Hopefully it doesn't give you one. But he's there parading this like it's some proud moment that Canadians should rejoice at. Yeah, the death of my chartered rights is something I am so ecstatic about, Gary. Thank you so much for that. Be right back. I'm actually gonna go celebrate this. Let's go, guys. We're gonna celebrate. We're gonna celebrate the passing of Bill C-22. Woo! Let's go. Damn beer chartered rights, everyone. Let's freaking go. Who's with me? Who's gonna pop this bottle? Someone wants to drink? It's Friday after all. Anyways, none of this matters.
But I actually want to talk about what happened this week, because I think it feeds into a possible problem that the Liberals need to be attuned to. Last week, Michael Sabia, speaking at the Eurasia Group, this is the clerk of the Privy Council, talked about one of the things the Carney government has that's an asset, which is trust from the public. What happened this week is that the Liberals decided to use their majority to shut down debate and pass legislation that is very controversial, bills that were not studied, in some cases had no witnesses that even testified as to whether this was good or bad. We had the lawful access bill that has gotten a bit more attention across the country. And the government completely shut down the debate. In some cases, they even backdated the ability of opposition members to bring forward amendments, so only government members could bring forward amendments. We have never seen anything like this, ever. Like, we have talked a lot about these kind of moves during the Harper era, especially during his majority government, and with reason.
I love how they always have to bring it back to Harper, though. You know, I give them credit at CBC right now for actually talking about insane, crazy issues. Kudos to them for once. But notice, it's never truly done impartially. It's kind of like hurting them to have to hold the Liberals accountable here. So they have to bring it back somehow and tie it to the Conservatives and Harper. Forget the fact that it's been 11 years ago and Harper never, and I mean never, ever did something as crazy as what the Carney government did.
I think we deserve to talk and highlight what is happening in this case. And I bring it up because the trust issue. The government House leader talked about, he hoped the conspiracies around C-22, the lawful access bill, would just go away, that time would allow these to pass. He talked about tinfoil hat people. This is not a way to bring people along. Okay. If anything, it fuels conspiracies. So there was no reason to pass these bills. They could have taken the summer to study them and bring more Canadians on side. And I think that they are they risk taking, I should say, Canadians' votes for granted. Okay, right now, the vote. I think right now.
Yeah. Rosemary is like getting a little page right there in her earpiece, like, you know, stop this woman, she's speaking too much sense. We gotta stop her, please. Oh my God! Because after literally abusing in an unprecedented ways the power of a majority government to censor and to silence any opposition to Bill C-22, they rammed it through into law in one single day. Because it's official, and I might have popped the champagne a little earlier today in this episode, but Bill C-22 has officially passed in the House of Commons. The Senate is only a matter of time, and royal assent would be given in no time. So again, not a single member of Parliament outside of the Liberals voted for this.
I want you to know that when they said unanimous consent, that Bill C-22 goes through on division, I stood to make it clear on the record that the Green Party opposes Bill C-22, and Jenny Kwan stood on the record to make sure everyone knows the NDP opposes Bill C-22. But it's worth noting that every single opposition party opposed a bill that was pushed through just moments ago with a unanimous consent motion and no vote.
Whoa, I never thought I would actually like Elizabeth May, but take notice of what she said. Not the NDP, not the Bloc, not the Greens, no one, and I mean no one, aside from the Liberals, voted for this. And I think this is one of the first time in recent political history where there was not even a single NDP member or Bloc member siding with the government. Everyone was unanimously against this piece of legislation. And it just goes to show how preposterous this entire ordeal is. And before you point out concessions that the government made in this law to appease the other side, let me shine some light on what those concessions are really about. They went from ordering companies to retain data for up to 1 year and instead lowered it to 6 months. UPD freaking do. That really makes a freaking difference. At this point, I should just be taking my phone and handing it to Creepy Gary in order for him to spy on what's going on, because whether it's 6 months or a year makes no difference. There was no change on whether government can order companies to install devices enabling the government to access your information. There was no change on the government ordering companies to organize data in order for the government to access it. There was no change in lowering the legal threshold for police to access your data. Again, this comes without a warrant. Which, real quick, if someone's actually committing a crime, what is the issue with going to a judge and asking for a warrant? This is the entire premise of the rule of law, of being innocent until proven guilty, of reasonable suspicion. You cannot just access people's stuff. That's why we have rights. That's why we have a charter, apparently. Not that it really matters, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later. Here's an amendment in the law that they're probably congratulating themselves about. It went from companies cannot disclose government orders to affected users. That's right, because all this is done under secrecy. The people whose data are being accessed cannot be told. They can't be told. It has to be done secretly. Well, now the government may authorize disclosure in narrow cases. Again, woohoo! I feel so much better about this. So effectively, nothing meaningful changed. It's become quite evident that the Liberals under Mark Carney only care about one thing: consolidating power, from manufacturing a majority despite the results of the last election, which spits in the face of the Canadian electorate and their choices, to proposing a myriad of bills which erode our chartered rights in favor of giving the government more control and power, to silencing all debate in Parliament using methods that are more akin to a dictator than a functioning democracy, and through institutional capture by removing any independent safeguards, like, for example, the PBO. It's an insidious power grab, and make no mistake, and I mean every single word I'm about to say, we are losing our democracy. I never thought I'd see this in Canada, but it goes to show a very important point. A constitution and institutions are nothing without people safeguarding them. When people, through indoctrination or worse, apathy, allow these things to happen, all protections you took for granted disappear. And it only took Mark Carney 1 year to get that done. And it will get much worse going forward. Mark my freaking word. So although I'm deeply saddened by this, I'm also kind of relieved in a really bad, kind of awkward way, because now that this is behind us, my attention and focus is going to shift from trying to oppose this bill to trying to expose all the abuses that are going to come from it. And I'm sure there will be plenty of instances that will come to light of abuse of powers with laws like these being passed.
Unelected bureaucrats and activists and judges rewrite the rules. If we allow and tolerate foreign interference and media capture, if we accept that the government can freeze your bank account for protesting, seize your farm for progress, if we trade liberty for equity, safety, and Canadian content, we're going to wake up in the morning in exactly the same place.
So yesterday, I was invited to meet the U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, and the U.S. Consul General to Canada, Robert Sanders. This was an informal lunch with 6 other attendees, namely popular personalities from mainstream medias like CBC, Radio-Canada, CTV, La Presse, etc. You get the point. I won't disclose their names, but I'm sure you've seen or heard of them before. Some might even have appeared earlier in this very video. But I now understand why the media is the way it is. It's driven by pure ideologues. The truth doesn't matter to them, so long as their personal ideologies are promoted and pushed far and wide. And if you thought it was bad on TV, it's even worse behind closed doors. Some of the comments that were made by them made me cringe big time. The ambassador and the Consul General, however, were incredible, true class acts, and I had an amazing discussion with the both of them. What became painfully apparent to me is that America really wants to make a deal with Canada, but Canada needs to drop the rhetoric. The anti-American thing is causing more harm than we realize. But Elliot, why you bring this up? No, it's not to boast. The reason I'm bringing this up is to highlight why my contemporaries and I, who are independent, seem to be the only ones talking about what's really going on in Canada and doing the job that the actual media should be doing.
Gosh, that's not a democracy. It's not. Democracy is not when Parliament sidelined for 8 months. Democracy is not when foreign interference is ignored and elections are gamed. Democracy is not when, the courts rule the government broke the law and then nothing changes. Democracy is not when the state controls your speech, your property, your health care, your energy, your news, your guns, and then offers you assisted suicide because the wait times for their medicine is too long. Canada has become something else. It's a managed oligarchy with democratic trappings. The forums remain, the elections, the parliament building, the maple leaf flag, but the substance of what Canada has always been is gone. Power is consolidated now. Dissent is managed. The individual exists to serve the state and not the other way around. Look how far Canada has fallen.
When Americans spend more time shining light on what's really going on with Canada than our very own media does, holding our government to account more than our politicians do, exposing corruption and fraud while our side of the border works overtime to hide it, you know that something is fundamentally wrong with your country. And this is the greatest threat to our future prosperity. There is a war for Canadian minds, and we must fight harder to prevent it from being accomplished. On today's Crazy Liberal Take of the Day, a little bit of humor coming out of Toronto. Mayor Olivia Chow is just the provider of hours of memes.
I am proclaiming June 16, 2026 as Jerkfest Day in Toronto!
Over the years, I've had the pleasure of attending Jerkfest myself.
Sorry, everyone. I should have made you aware of Jerkfest Day a little bit earlier. We passed it, but next year, get ready. It's Jerkfest Day. Now, of course, she's talking about, the Caribbean tradition, right? Like jerk chicken and, the spicy stuff, the good stuff. Great food. Love it. Big fan. Number one fan. However, come on, you couldn't have picked a better name. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right. It's Jerkfest Day, with a city that loves to fly very colorful things over their town hall and just about every building, and that loves to rename things and, undermine our culture and heritage in favor of some very fringe minority. Giving the name to a day as Jerkfest Day, well, it can lead to some confusion. I had to do a double take. It's time to walk the walk. Canadian investors need to demonstrate that their willingness to support the Canadian economy goes beyond just making noise. Investing in the Canadian mining sector, where many amazing Canadian mining stories are active and listed, is an outstanding way to get involved and to promote the Canadian economy. One such example is Nord Precious Metals, listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange under ticker NTH.V. Beyond Nord Precious Metal being a true Canadian mining story, we also need to take a look at the metals that they hold in their property, because that is where the true value lies. And the time is ripe. Being located in the famous district of Cobalt, Ontario, this means they get to benefit from the province's newly passed laws that aim to unleash the mining sector.
We proposed a number of new policies to help expand mining and critical mineral development in Ontario. That includes a new one project, one process approach to streamline permitting and cut red tape for critical projects.
Namely, we have Bill 5 with the badass name of Protect Ontario by Unleashing Our Economy Act of 2025. And there's also the aptly named Bill 71, Building More Mines Act 2023. Together, these two bills do something that nowhere else in the world is possible. It allows new permitting to be issued within 80 days. This is unheard heard of. But what makes their journey so interesting beyond this is the grade of silver that they have drilled. Their property boasts one of the richest intersects ever drilled at 89,853 grams per ton silver over 0.3 meters. And I'm not making it up. Right here, drill intercepts of extremely high-grade silver over intervals of roughly 0.3 meters, representing narrow bonanza-grade vein systems, typically highlight world-class exploration projects. The most notable recent data matches this exact profile, that of Castle East project belonging to Nord Precious Metals. Located in Cobalt, District of Ontario, this project is known for some of the highest grade silver intercepts ever drilled. And right here shows the historical record. The highest intercept at the Robinson Zone hit 89,853 grams per ton of silver, with almost 3 million ounces of proven tailings worth roughly 225 million Canadian dollars, and about 7 million more ounces in their Castle East property, which requires more drilling. This would amount to roughly 525 million Canadian dollars at a conservative $75 per ounce Canadian. Once they can move through the permitting for their tailings, they can continue to fund their drilling expansion to grow that 7 million ounces into many more millions, using the tailings as cash flow to fund the resource expansion. With precious metal prices falling, the macro opportunity is opening up for those interested in starting to invest in miners, specifically Canadian miners. Although this is not financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor nor an expert, I wanted to highlight the amazing work that my good friends at Nord Precious Metals are doing, and what some would label as an incredible opportunity for not only the Canadian economy, but also individuals who would want to partake in this story and also the potential upside. Now, if you've enjoyed this report and would like to find a way to get involved, aside from liking, sharing, hyping, commenting, subbing to this channel, if you want to take it a step further and help financially, well, I have a Patreon. The link is in the description, and every single proceed, it's $8 a month, goes towards helping me spend more time doing research and putting out as much content as possible so that we can break that CBC-induced coma that sadly so many of us are under. If you'd rather just do a one-time donation, I also have a PayPal link. Much love for everyone who has contributed so far. It blows my mind every time I look at my phone and there's a PayPal notification for some money coming in. I'm like, wow, you make my freaking day. I love it. Now, if you missed the last episode, I break down what happened at the G7, some hilarious moment, and most importantly, Donald Trump setting the record straight and putting every single G7 leaders on notice that he is actually the boss. But for the time being, my name is Elliot Daniel, and I'm going to go enjoy my weekend. I hope you guys do as well, and don't forget to celebrate Jerk Fest Day, baby.